When most people approach me, they think that I work primarily with investors or serial entrepreneurs, and that's not really the case. The majority of the people that approach me are considering career transition, and from all levels of business. And they are considering career transition because they're burning out. They're working 80 hours a week. They're not seeing their kids grow up. They're missing family functions or showing up late. They're not getting to enjoy their hobbies. And they wonder, how can I relate to that experience? And then I share with them, I understand career transition. I was a physician, chiropractor. I was working 80 hours a week, not showing up for family functions, showing up late. Didn't have kids, but I was definitely not enjoying my hobbies. And I thought that I saw a light at the end of the tunnel, but what I realized, that was a train coming in the other direction. And then I saw the real light. That was the result of having read a book that shared with me that the purpose of my business was to serve my life, not my life serve that business. If you have a business that's dependent upon you, you don't have a business, you have a job, and it's the worst job in the world because you're working for a maniac. So the greatest perspective that I could have about my practice was that pretend that it was one of 1,000 more locations just like it, just like a McDonald's, like a franchise. So what I really had learned were franchising principles. The business needed to have systems and processes in place in order to create a predictable, reproducible, and consistent experience that I wanted for my patients and I wanted for my team. Applying those principles took my practice from $500,000 a year as a practice to 36 months later, a $4.5 million healthcare enterprise. I never would have been able to achieve that if my focus was going room to room to room, treating patients, delivering a commodity service. When the business became the product, the practice became the product, that's when things took off for me. And that's what franchise offers you. A franchise offers you a turnkey, packaged, proven model that's been duplicated and replicated over and over and over again. It's a recipe for success. You take that recipe, you follow the recipe, and then you get the same results. People that ask me, people fail in franchising? Yes, they do. What I found when I see people that did not make it in franchising, it wasn't that it was a bad franchise, and it wasn't a bad person. It was a bad marriage. Finding the right franchise is like finding the right partner in life. If you make the wrong decision, it's doomed to fail. So when people approach me, they want to know, can I own a franchise while I'm still employed? And my response is, franchises come in 3 different buckets. One bucket is owner-operator models. That means you are the business. Most people that do owner-operator franchises don't have the aspirations or desires to build an enterprise. It's your roto-rooter plumber that wants to go out in his van and provide plumbing services to the community. And he might have bought himself a job, but at least he's doing it for himself. It's his business. He can work the hours that he wants to work. The other end of the spectrum in a bucket are what I call executive models. Some people used to call this absentee or passive, turnkey. And I think there are a little bit of misnomers. And the reason is there are only 2 things that run on their own, a business and a car, and that's downhill. A business needs to have management. So you can manage a manager that's running that business for you, but you'll need about 15 hours a week to be able to field phone calls from that manager. If there are challenges or problems in your business, which is your asset, you have to be able to take those phone calls. If you can't take a call from your wife or kids during the day, you're probably not going to take one from your manager, and owning a franchise while you're employed is probably doomed to fail. So there are several franchises that understand that you want to do this as an investment, and it's a great investment strategy, but your evaluation of that business will be different if you're looking at it purely as an investment versus looking at it as a job replacement as well as a return on your investment capital. So people approach me, they want to know the different types of franchises because they're interested in possibly owning a franchise while they're employed. And I share with them, franchise models come in 3 different buckets. First bucket I call owner-operator models. You are the business. It's the man in the van model in many cases. Your plumber decides to jump ship from a plumbing company and buy a Roto-Rooter, and he wants to go out and service customers all day, and he's happy, doesn't care to build an enterprise. He doesn't have the desire or passion to do that. He just wants to do his craft. And there's no problem with that. There are plenty of options in that category. On the other end of the spectrum are models I call executive models. And I call them that because these are the types of models that executives want to own, because they're not going to leave their career to own the franchise. They're going to continue doing what they're doing. This is purely an investment strategy for diversification of their portfolio. Here is where the myth is in franchising, though. People think they can buy a franchise and set it and forget it, that it's passive, absentee, and that is doomed to fail. Only two things run on their own, a business and a car, and that's downhill. So if you are interested in staying employed while you own a franchise, understand the expectation by the franchise is that you're going to be able to spend 15 hours a week managing that manager. And you can't just do that in the evenings and the weekends when it's convenient for you. You have to be able to field phone calls throughout the day, because that's your asset and somebody's managing it for you, and you have to be there for them. But where most franchises exist is this middle bucket. This middle bucket, semi-passive ownership. You are involved day to day. Initially, you'll be heavily involved in the business, but as the business matures and grows, you can come in late, you can leave early, you can go on vacation, and the business will still be operating. I think that's the desire of most business owners, in and out of franchising, is that you have a business that's not dependent upon you being there. Otherwise, you bought yourself a job, and if that wasn't your intention, you're going to wind up being miserable. So you're the manager, you're the leader. Your staff looks to you for direction, but you're loving what you're doing, you want to be involved, you're someone who doesn't feel comfortable setting it and forgetting it. Those are the greatest franchises available and where most sit.
Okay. Why should I listen to you? What is your value as a consultant? Explain franchise consultant, broker, recruiter, whatever you want to label yourself. Explain it, showcase your value, and the three biggest reasons why you should use them.
So people approach me because they're interested in franchise ownership. And they didn't even know that someone like me even exists to help them in that process. The challenge is, since the advent of the internet, people will go online to look up franchising. There's 3,600 franchises operating in the US, and they're all not great. And even the ones that are great doesn't mean that it's great for you. How do you know which franchise is the best fit? Even though franchises have the greatest likelihood for success compared to startup businesses or mom and pop businesses, it's the greatest likelihood for success if it's a good fit for you. It's no different than picking your spouse. Having professional guidance and expertise to take you down the path of making the best decision, and one of the most important decisions you'll ever make, is paramount. No different than if you moved to a foreign city and you were looking for a home, you would take the services of a real estate agent. How would you know where the safe neighborhoods are, where the good schools are? You need to know more than just 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. Having somebody assist you in learning about you and understanding what your goals and your dreams and your passions are, understanding your financial goals and objectives. What are you looking to achieve personally, professionally, and financially is extremely important. What are your values? What's the culture of an organization need to be in order to resonate well for you? Culture in franchises is no different than culture in corporate. Mature franchises are going to feel more like corporate structure. If you want to get away from that rigid corporate formality, then maybe you need to go to a more younger, more entrepreneurial organization. If you need that structure in corporate, doing a new franchise that's more entrepreneurial, maybe more loosey-goosey, might be frustrating for you as well. Having someone, a consultant, a coach, assist you and take you through a very methodical approach is going to allow you the greatest likelihood that you end up with the right franchise, and not waste your time spending it looking at franchise models that are not going to get you to where you're looking to get to. A franchise consultant is kind of a marriage between a real estate agent and an executive recruiter. Our job is to help you in making a very important decision and find what you're looking for. As a real estate agent, it's finding your perfect home. As an executive recruiter, it's finding that perfect job. As a financial planner, it'd be the best financial plan for you and your family. We're trusted advisors. I have an expertise and knowledge that can assist you in understanding what it is that you're looking for. Understanding that a business is a vehicle to get you to a destination. And getting into that right vehicle is extremely important, because if you get in the wrong vehicle, you might be heading in the wrong direction. As I shared, failures in franchising many times has nothing to do with the franchise or the person. It was a bad fit. What I do is make sure that there's a good fit between you and the franchise, and that will give you the greatest likelihood of achieving the results that you're looking for, and achieving the results that others have achieved in that franchise. Because with franchising, you're going to have the ability to speak with owners that have already achieved their goals and dreams with that business, and all you need to do is follow the recipe that's been laid out for you. The biggest mistake people exploring franchise ownership make is the misperception and false assumptions around franchise ownership. They think it's passive. They think it's absentee. They think it's turnkey, set it and forget it. And I can tell you there's only two things that run on their own. One is a business and the second is a car, and that's downhill. Okay. So when people approach me and they're thinking about franchise ownership, what's critically important for me is to help determine for them whether franchise ownership makes sense, because it's not for everybody. I can tell you I'd be the worst franchisee because I'm too entrepreneurial. I run a proprietary assessment, and this assessment will show me red flags for franchise ownership. On one hand, you might be too risk adverse. You might need safety and security more than taking the risk of business ownership, and maybe are better suited staying in corporate. Better to know that up front. Maybe you're too entrepreneurial. That's me. I can't follow someone else's recipe. I would want to change the formula for Kentucky Fried Chicken. Why? Just because I'd want to. I'm better off being an investor, not being an operator of a franchise. So my assessment will determine if you have the skill sets and qualities and characteristics that would make sense for you to own a franchise versus doing something else. I've spent the last 30 years as a small business owner in private practice. I turned that practice into a healthcare enterprise. From there, I went into consulting, working with healthcare professionals, franchises in healthcare, franchisees in healthcare. So my indoctrination in franchising started very early when I was applying those principles to my own business, because I wanted my practice to provide a consistent, predictable, and reproducible result for my patients and for my team. I spent the last 30 years understanding and distilling all of the principles that make a business successful. You as an owner need to work on that business, not in it. Critically important for running a successful business. If you're too busy in that business doing it all day long and not be able to orchestrate the business, you'll probably find it dissatisfying. Number one, you'd want to know, are you willing to spend full time in that business or not? Determining the business model operating style is critically important. Number two, do you have the financial wherewithal to invest in a franchise? You need to understand the liquidity, net worth, and total investment required for a franchise that would be the best fit for you. Number three, your significant other better be on board if you're going to buy a franchise. Number one, it's an asset that you own, that you can sell, transfer, or have succession planning, get your kids into. You control your business. You don't have to report to anybody. You report to yourself. You're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. You have support of corporate, and you have all the franchisees that are running this business and have been doing it longer than you that can share best practices, and you have a think tank of knowledge and wisdom to tap into. You have a brand that's recognizable. There's consumer awareness about your service and or product. Buy a brand that everyone already likes. Look for an opportunity that's not being fulfilled in your neighborhood.